The electric car market is overflooded by SUVs and big sedans. But the Europeans tend to love station wagons. And this is the first available station wagon on the market in the premium segment from BMW. Will this be the golden arrow that actually helps people transition from combustion engines to fully electric vehicles? Let's see about that. And you are watching It's Only Electric. This is my full review of the BMW i5 M60 xDrive Touring, and this will be detailed. Let's go! The i5 is built on the same platform as the regular 5 Series, which means that this is a hybrid platform built for electric vehicles, combustion engines, and hybrids. That's also one of the reasons that the car has such a long hood. Fortunately, it makes the car look really sporty and good, especially in this Touring edition. I mean, the Touring version looks a lot better than the sedan version, if you ask me. It gives the car a really nice balance between the frontal part and the sporty looking rear end of the car. Measures 506 centimeters in total length, so this is a big car. Wheelbase 299 centimeters, so almost 3 meters of wheelbase. Weighs in at just under 2.4 tons. That's a heavy car. And as you see here, this is not a regular i5 Touring. This is the M60 version. Looks really beautiful in this fire red metallic, really sporty, combined with this M60 M package. Really nice looking car. 4-wheel drive, meaning that it has 2 permanent magnet motors, one at the front, one at the back. That one is a bit stronger than the one in the front. Total combined output, 601 horsepower, 795 Newton meters of torque. When activating boost mode for 10 seconds, it puts out 820 Newton meters of torque, or activating the launch mode. So that's really a lot of power. 0 to 100 in 3.9 seconds, top speed 230 kilometers per hour. This is an angry looking car, especially here at the front. At the top, the blue BMW emblem says that I'm blue, I'm efficient, I'm electrified. Closed grille, this is the iconic illuminated grille. That's also extra, totally blacked out central part of the grille. 2 active air ventilations here, depending on the needs of the car. Integrated M emblem here at the front. Built-in frontal camera for the park assist system. At the sides, some air intakes for the wheel arches, also air ventilation here underneath, and at the bottom, a red air spoiler, fairly big and aggressive looking, all put together, a really good looking car. And the most angry detail is probably the headlights, really square shaped, aggressive looking headlights. Another thing that's unique for the M60 is the red brake calipers. So bigger brake calipers, ventilated, and bigger front discs for more braking power. This one is equipped with even bigger wheels than the regular M60 has. So this is BMW individual wheels, the most expensive ones you can get, but also the best looking ones if you ask me. But it comes to a cost, or 2 costs, it costs more. Secondly, it also costs you some range. So 255s here at the front, 285s at the rear, so a staggered setup. Big pieces of rubber will eat up some extra range. So total range of this car is 452 kilometers. The top ranging model of the M60 has a total range of 510 kilometers. So we almost lose like 70 kilometers depending on the equipment of the M60. Let's move on to the rear axle. Integral steering, which means that the rear axle also steers, so in speeds under 60 kilometers per hour, the rear axle actually turns in the opposite direction of the front wheels, which means that you get a shorter turning radius than usual. And in higher speeds, over 60 kilometers per hour, it starts to turn in the same direction, so in parallel with the front axle, which means that the car gets more agile and sporty when driving it in higher speeds. And this car is also equipped with BMW's M-Power active dampers, which means that it is 8 millimeters lower than the regular car, and also active, so the dampers can be set to 2 different modes, sport and comfort, and they adjust depending on the road conditions. Charge port placed at the rear right side of the car. DC power, fast charging power, 205 kilowatts, that's the peak speed, 10 to 80% in around 30 minutes. Home charging, 3-phase support, you can choose between 11 and an add-on of 22 kilowatts. It has the same battery pack as the regular i5 version, so a gross battery capacity of 84 kilowatt hours and a net capacity of 81.2 kilowatt hours. Let's have a look at the part that you may all be waiting for, the rear end of the i5 M60. As in the front, aggressive and angry looking rear end design, the blue emblem here in the middle, the nice looking M60 badge on the right, angry looking rear tail lights, the big air spoiler here at the top with a integrated brake light. It is a nice looking car, especially in this color combination. And here at the lower end you have the big air diffuser, adding some extra flavor to the rear. Let's have a look at the boot. Total boot capacity 570 liters compared to the 490 liters that the sedan version offers. That's a big difference, almost 100 liters of extra boot capacity. And just so you know, this one, as all other BMWs, doesn't have any frunk. So that's sad. Despite having that long hood, there is no frunk. 570 liters. This one, I love it. Normally, this is one of the pain points in station wagons. The partial shelf is very often a hassle, both closing it and removing it. This is made from aluminum, really easy to pull out, never gets wrong. When you open it, it stops in that middle section automatically. Push it again, it goes all the way in. Also very easy to remove and stow away. Underneath here there is a slot for keeping this one hidden. This may not be a big thing, but I really think it is, because it's really questioning the mental health of the driver, fiddling around with badly designed partial shelves. I'm done with that. This is how it should look. Let's move on to the practical aspects. Foldable seats split into 3 parts, 40, 20, 40. So loadable in the middle, very nice, storing long things. Adds a lot of practicality. Extra storage underneath, not that much. You only fit the partial shelf, nothing else. So it is what you see. When it comes to the folding of the seats, there's 2 levers, one at each side. You just pull it and it slowly folds down and gets fairly flat. And on the right side here, we also have a grocery bag hook, a 12-volt outlet, and a button for the tow hitch. This is really nice. Total tow capacity 2 tons. Fully electric maneuverability, really easy and convenient. You never need to get dirty, so that's nice. Powered liftgate. On top of that, what the sedan doesn't have, integrated rails into the roof, so easy to attach roof racks for adding extra cargo capacity on the roof. Let's move on and have a look at the rear seat. Very solid sound. One more time. Nice. Let's start with the interior space here at the rear. As you see, same leg room as in the i5 sedan. I don't see any obvious difference. I can squeeze my feet underneath the front seat, and it is actually on the lowest position, so that's good. So foot room, footwells, okay. When it comes to the knee room, not that good, but I'm still not touching the rear of the front seat. So enough room for me. And by the way, the front seat is adjusted after my driving position, and I'm 193 centimeters tall, or 6'4", so probably not the best example of someone to put here at the rear. But as you see, plenty of room. I mean, two persons like me can easily fit here without starting a fight. When it comes to headroom, a bit more of a headroom than in the sedan version. I think I had like 3 centimeters or 1.5 finger of extra space. And here I really don't touch the ceiling or the headliner. And I have a couple of centimeters more, or actually 3 fingers compared to 1.5 finger in the sedan version. So as expected, a bit more of a headroom here at the rear compared to the sedan version. So if you're really tall, taller than me, you should really go for the Touring version. It adds some extra headroom. Some of that headroom actually comes from the panoramic glass roof that goes all the way here from the rear to the front. A really big chunk of glass really lifts the experience here at the rear, gives you more air and more space. Built-in electronically controlled curtain for shading out the sun. Also lowers the noise volume inside the car. Otherwise, a really convenient back seat with all the bells and whistles you expect. Some built-in ambient lighting here at the door. The materials is, as always, in a 5 Series, really good. Soft touch almost everywhere. Good materials. Even the hard plastics feel good in the finish. Fit and finish also really great. The lever here in aluminum trims. And this is the updated speaker systems from Bowers and Wilkins. So a 18 speaker setup with a really crystal clear sound, around 650 watts of total output. So a good sound system. I really appreciate that. These are USB-C ports and mount for a media screen for the rear passengers if you want to add some extra luxury. Here at the mid console you have 2 manual air ventilations, and underneath that 2 USB-C ports and a small display with a dual zone AC climate zone where you can adjust the temperature for each side and also activate or deactivate the seat heating in 3 different levels. On top of those ventilations there's also a ventilation in the B-pillar on each side, so plenty of ventilation and good settings for the climate controls here at the rear. When it comes to the rear bench and the comfort here at the rear bench, as you see, it's fairly flat. Also here at the midsection, so you can fit a person here too. One caveat is though that this is built on a combustion platform, which means that you have a really high cardan tunnel here at the rear going through the whole section of the car. That actually removes some comfort at the rear, so I would recommend you to go for 2 passengers here at the rear if you don't want to get stuck here in the middle. Soft seats, fairly good amount of cushioning and support for your thighs. Even if you're long, this is actually not that bad at all. The backrest's also soft and perforated fake leatherette in this case. Individual headrests in all 3 positions. Here in the middle, a armrest with 2 adaptable cup holders. Another nice flavor is the seat belts. In this case, equipped with the M designed seat belts with this blue and red M design colors. Really iconic design. I would go for those. Looks really good. Adds some flavor. And as always, at the front seat of the 5 Series, you won't find that much of bad materials. Let's start with the dashboard. Soft touch everywhere, even furthest in to the windshield, it's soft touch. The only hard plastics here at the top is the plastic surrounding the head-up display and on top of the speakers. Otherwise, very nice. And built-in or semi-built-in iPad-like screens. So it's one big curved panel with 2 screens, 1 digital instrument cluster with the size of 12.3 inch, a bit of a bigger 14.9 inch media or central screen. I think this is a good blend between the chunky iPad looking integrations. This is semi-integrated into the dashboard, which looks good. Built-in ambient lighting. This is the crystallized ambient lighting with some crystal shaped plastics underneath the transparent plastic covers. The color scheme is adjusting depending on the drive mode you select. Also changes when you activate the hazard lights, for instance. But as you see, all in all, there is not a lot buttons in this car. This may be one of the BMWs with the least amount of buttons out there currently. I like it. I think this is a perfect blend between hardware functions, hardware buttons, and digital input. Let's continue with the dashboard. This is the carbon fiber panel. Looks really good and sporty. Gives the car a good flow. Steering wheel, M Sport steering wheel, of course. This is the M60 with a M badge here at the bottom of the steering wheel. A straight line here, so it's flat underneath. Otherwise, a roundly shaped one, 3-spoke design with the red steering indicator at the top that reminds you of that this is a M60, not the regular car. And this combined with the M Performance stitching, red and blue, really lifts the steering wheel, I think, and gives you a sophisticated feeling of sportiness. When it comes to the controls, this is the same as for all i5s. You have 2 big main control areas, one to the right, one to the left. To the left, you control the driving aid systems, activate, deactivate, drive assist functionality, set the speed by toggling up and down, the mode selector if you just want to have the speed assist, or if you want to have the complete drive assist package, you switch that with the mode button here at the bottom. To the right, you have the media controls, volume, skip, and reverse for the media, changing the source, activating the voice control, taking the phone calls, and a setting button for setting up the instrument cluster and the head-up display. Powered steering wheel adjustments. Behind the steering wheel, there's 2 normal stalks as always, but in front of the left stalk, there is something called boost. And this is a really interesting paddle. It was also present at the i5 xDrive 40 that I drove. And this is actually the button that activates the extra amount of torque for 10 seconds. You can also activate that extra amount of torque by entering launch mode. And that's done by pressing the brake pedal with your left foot whilst pressing the accelerator a small amount. Then you activate launch mode. If you want to do a 0 to 100 test, that's the way you're going to do it. And that's the way you achieve the 3.9 seconds. I'm going to test that in my next video, so stay tuned for that. I don't want to spoil anything, but let's see if it is possible to achieve that numbers with this car. Let's move on to the central compartment here. The air vents are not digital adjustable, they are manual, but in a very sophisticated and well integrated way. I'm starting to like this. I think this is a smart way of doing it. This is better than have it fully digital. Underneath that, you have a Qi charger to the left, a resting area without a Qi charger to the right for your phone, 2 adaptable cup holders with built-in ambient lighting. These parts are actually surrounded by this black piano finish. Seems to be fairly scratch resistant, but not that resistant against fingerprints and smudging. So this area will always be dirty. This specific car is equipped with the extra package. I think it's called like a crystal mid-console or something. And that actually updates the iDrive control toggle or controlling wheel to look like a crystal. Also the volume knob, the gear selector, start and stop button, all goes very well together with this black finish here at the center console. Otherwise, there's a lot of controls here. So we have to the left, start and stop button. Underneath that, the gear selector, so reverse, neutral, drive. And you have 2 drive modes, as in all electric BMWs, D and B, where D is the regular drive mode where you can adjust the amount of regen, and B is the full regen, 1 pedal driving setting. That's the one I always drive it on. Underneath that you have the parking brake and auto hill hold functionality. To the left, the big control pad. At the top you have the media toggler, phone shortcut, navigation shortcut, shortcut to the home, a backwards shortcut to just jump back, and then the big xDrive controller. Underneath that, the volume control, media control for reversing or forwarding the media. I just activated the voice control. And then you have some shortcuts, one for activating the park assist functionality, the parking view, and underneath that a shortcut to the car settings. Just to the right, the drive mode selector. So press that and you get a shortcut to the actual drive modes. More about that in a couple of minutes. Let's continue. Soft touch, good padding here for your armrest. Not adjustable, but it actually works good for me. Press it, split into two parts. This is really a small compartment. Key card, digital key card. So with this one you can unlock the car and drive the car. So if you don't want to like move around with a big chunky M key in your pocket, you can use a digital key card instead to save some space. Or if you want to lend your car, for instance, to someone, you don't need to give them the key, you can give them the key card. So it's NFC enabled, which means that the car feels the presence of the key. And when you drive it, you put it here and it works as a fully key, okay? Glove box, fairly small, but you still have one. And some limited pockets here in the door sides. And whilst talking about the door sides, same type of materials as at the rear with a lot of control buttons. First off, you have the seats, have memories, so 2 memory slots. You can also connect it and pair it to your BMW ID. So BMW ID actually saves your driver settings in the cloud. So when you enter a new car, it adjusts the car automatically depending on your settings for your profile. So that's a clever thing to do. Seats, I haven't talked about the seats. This is the last part before we're taking it for a drive. And this is the M seats, sport seats, and I like them, but at the same time I'm a bit disappointed because I was hoping for some more bolstering and side support at the seating part. I mean, the cushioning, etc. is good. The seats are really comfortable for both short and long travels, but when you drive it a bit more active, you don't get the amount of support, at least the support I wish for here at the side bolsterings. Want it to be a bit deeper. But the bolsters on the back part is actually good and they are active, so you can adjust them both on the screen, but also depending on the drive mode. So when I enter the sports mode, it actually tightens up the seat to give you a better support on a curvy road. So that's interesting. And that goes for both seats actually. So and the seats are fully powered. Also a 2-axis powered lumbar support and extendable thigh support. And the angle is really great. I said that for the i5 sedan too. This is one of the better seats for tall persons. I don't remember when I got this well support latest in another car. I mean, the angle of the seat is so good and the length of the actual seating position is great. So it gives me great support and it really lets me rest my legs when I drive the car, and that's not that often. Sad thing though is that you can't adjust the thigh support from the seat itself. You need to do that from the menus, and there is a seat menu where you actually press that one and adjust it. I'm gonna extend it to the maximum amount. You can adjust everything here on both frontal seats. On top of the powered seats, they are also equipped with heating in 3 levels and cooling in 3 levels. So well in the front seat, driving the M60 Touring. This is an amazing car. I mean, it really feels so tanky, so well built. No strange sounds, no squeaking, nothing. Just pure, solid build quality, ride comfort, and on top of that, performance. Everything into one very sleek but long package. Let's start with the drive modes. Push it. So, sports mode active, that's why I have this sound activated, because I really like it. So the driving sounds, called iconic sounds, are depending on the drive mode you have selected. And whilst talking about the drive modes, there is a couple of them. Personal, as it sounds, your individual choice of settings. Sport, efficient, expressive, relax, and digital art. The last one is more of a user experience inside the car with the sound and graphics on the screen. But let us dig into the sport mode first. And the specific settings of the sport mode is the drivetrain, driving dynamics, steering, damping, seat support. That's actually these ones, the side bolsters. They're actually active, so you can adjust the amount of space and support on both sides, actually, both driver and passenger side. And I have set everything to sport, damping, sport. You can choose between comfort and sport. Steering wheel the same, set to sport. Driving dynamics is set to sport, but you actually have two modes on top of that, called Sport Plus and DCS off. Last one is, as it sounds, the active support systems is deactivated, at least to a certain point. Sport Plus also, but not as aggressively turned off as at the DCS off setting. But if you put it to DCS off, let's try and see what happens. Will it spin? Yeah, gives me a lot more wheel spin. The strange feeling though, is that you don't feel it. You don't feel losing grip. You don't feel the spin if you're really not thinking and trying to feel it. It doesn't help you. And that's the dangerous thing with the M60. So much torque, so much horsepower. I mean, over 600 horsepower, 800 Newton meters. That's a lot. And from standstill, it's so aggressive. It flickers in your eyes. So aggressive and so immediate. So the accelerator is really responsive in sports mode. Actually in all modes, but especially in sports mode. And yeah, it's engaging for sure. Let me just turn off the iconic sound to give you some more silence and hear me better. The suspension, this is the active suspension, as I mentioned. The M suspension, active dampers, two modes, sport, comfort, set to sport now. But even in comfort, it's really versatile. And now, when I push it, it is like a go-kart. I mean, despite its heavy weight of almost 2.4 tons curb weight, and it is so immediate. I mean, first off, the steering wheel combined with the suspension, the stiffness, with almost no body roll at all, really engaging to drive, despite being so big. And something that's really helping out and makes it a bit more artificial, or makes the car feel smaller, is the active rear wheel steering. So the rear axle also steers and helps you to control the car. It feels a lot more quick, a lot more responsive. So the slightest touch on the steering wheel is so direct, it's so immediate, so sporty. And I mean, this car is over 5 meters, 506 centimeters long. It's a big and heavy car. Despite that, they managed to do kind of a balance between this comfort, but at the same time, the amazing sportiness. I mean, it's probably not like a M car, a M5, like they used to be, This is more of a sophisticated version of a M5. Not that aggressive, but you still have all the comfort as the lower trims bring you. I mean, this one feels as comfortable as the xDrive 40. That's the entry level, rear wheel drive, smaller wheels. This is driving on top of 21-inch wheels, not the 19-inch, and still feels so smooth when you want it to. That's really impressive. So well balanced by BMW here. Let's take it to some uneven surfaces and switch the dampers to comfort. Let's see. Settings, damping, comfort, and some potholes on top of that. It is not the softest setting I have ever tried, but I mean, it is a BMW, so it has its sporty DNA from the ground and up, so it shouldn't be too soft, but it is not uncomfortable. Let's eat up some holes here. No bad sounds, no missed sounds. Still fairly comfortable and handles the potholes in a good way, despite some sounds, but despite having those big wheels and thin layer of tires on top of that, it's still comfortable, it's still nice. So really impressive balance between sportiness and comfort. I mean, this car with this heavy weight couldn't be too comfortable, especially with this power. I mean, you need to have the support, the stiffness to not lose the control of the car. But a good mix. And just to be clear, I like cars that tends to be a bit stiffer, a bit more sporty with less body roll. I think that's a more engaging way of driving cars. Let's switch over to efficiency mode and see how that works out. And you immediately feel under your right foot, the accelerator gets a lot more tame, a lot less responsive, and more granular. You need to push it further down to get the extra amount of power. It gets a lot more settled, and when you press it over halfway, then it starts giving you that extra amount of power. And this suspension on comfort, or the dampers in comfort, is a lot more leaning in the sideways. So body roll is a lot more prominent compared to driving it on sports mode. A big difference here. I mean, I guess that's what you want when you go for active suspension or active dampers, really to feel the difference between the comfort and the sportiness. And it is really easy to do here. So there is a big amount of difference. Let's switch back over to sport and see. Yeah, the steering wheel gets a lot more sharp, a lot more detailed and direct, and the dampers stiffens up. Really big difference. A lot more sporty, and the accelerator gets so much more precise and so much more aggressive. Let's talk about the regen or recuperation. There is two main modes, D and B. So when you have it on D, you can customize the energy recuperation level. So when you pull the gear selector again, you enter the B mode, and B stands for braking, meaning that you have activated the one pedal driving. And one pedal driving is something that BMW really knows well, and are one of the few manufacturers that really utilizes a real one pedal driving. So when I let go of the accelerator, it really comes to a full stop. And this is so nice to see, and the braking is really linear and stable. You can really trust it because it behaves the same way every time, and really makes driving a lot more effortless if you're used to one-pedal driving. When switching back to D mode, there is actually a couple of settings. So D mode is possible to customize. So we have something called energy recovery in D, 4 different levels: low, moderate, high, adaptive. And adaptive is, as it sounds, it adapts according to the circumstances, the surroundings, the situation you are in currently. So when driving on highway, it coasts if you don't have any cars in front of you. That's nice. When driving in dense traffic, it adapts depending on the cars in front of you. So then it applies the amount of regeneration that's actually needed for that current situation. So my recommendation would be to go for adaptive when set to D, and generally drive in B mode. So in B mode, if you like one-pedal driving, drive in that one. And when going on longer trips, switch it to D, and you will get the coasting functionality on highway driving. Because if you set it to low, it will not coast. It applies some slight recuperation. So there is no manual mode for coasting. You need to use adaptive setting to be able to coast. So I think that's the perfect blend. D set to adaptive, B set to one-pedal driving. That combination will give you the perfect blend of the 2 different worlds. And you will be able to optimize your range and consumption depending on the situation you are in. Almost sounds like the adaptive setting, but it's not. I mean, I don't like the adaptive setting in general because it behaves different depending on the situation. You cannot really always trust it, because I want to use the accelerator the same way all the time. I want it to behave the same way. I don't want it to change the behavior when driving. I want to trust it and be able to calculate it in my brain every time I drive it. The sad thing though is that the recuperation setting is not present in the drive mode selector. So if you enter the settings here, there is no sub-menu for changing the actual recuperation. That's a separate part, so it's to be found under the driving settings here. Something called drivetrain and chassis, energy recovery in D. So there's a couple of steps. The nice thing though is that you can, by long pressing that actual sub-menu item, you can set shortcuts to it. So now I have a shortcut for energy recovery high and one for low. So by pressing that, it will adjust the region for you. So this is a much easier way of adjusting the region level in D mode than navigating to that actual menu or sub-menu. So that at least compensates for the separation of the settings. Okay, so I'm soon done with the drive test. I'm switching back to sports mode. I think this is my favorite mode. It is so quick. It should be able to do 0 to 100 in 3.9 seconds, and I'm actually testing that in the next coming video, and I will put the link to it up here when it's available, so stay tuned for that one. That one will include cabin noise, acceleration, consumption and range, and charging. So 4 very important aspects when driving electric. So this is a long video. We have been looking into a lot of details, everything from driving dynamics down to the exterior looks, all the specifications, the interior materials, the rear seat, the space, the boot. So I'm thinking of ending this video in the boot. Why not? I mean, this is the touring version, and we are here to celebrate the touring version of the i5. And I will try to summarize my view, my week with this car. I mean, it has been a great week, and all you guys know that I love to test different cars. And when I have them for a week, I really try to use them as much as possible. I take it, go out shopping, leave the kids at school, different activities, go to work in it. So I try to use it as much as possible. On top of that, doing all my tests, just to get to know the car as good as possible, to be able to give you a good and neutral view. I must say that this is one of the more impressive cars I have tested so far. I mean, we haven't talked about the price. I will come to that very soon, because that's probably one of the biggest downsides. Stay tuned. Everything else is really great. I mean, there's two factors that really holds me back when it comes to the i5 in general. The first one is that it is built on a combustion platform or a hybrid platform, which makes the car inefficient when it comes to interior space compared to the big chunky size of the exterior and the weight. It is a heavy car, it is a big car, but it's not as big in the interior as it could have been if it was built on a full electric platform. So that's number one. Number two is, of course, the price. I mean, this one is on a campaign now, kind of a launch edition is available, at least here in Sweden, and I think in bigger parts of Europe. You can get this car for 100,000 euros or 1.2 million Swedish crowns. Almost the specifications, not the rims, but almost all parts are there, a lot of extra equipment. The entry-level car of the touring version starts just under 800,000 Swedish crowns. That's also a launch edition. So maybe this is the time to get one if you are after a touring version of the i5. That's not cheap, but it is a premium car and playing in the premium segment, and everything about the car is premium, all the materials and the driving dynamics. That's the biggest plus of this car. I mean, the practicality combined with the driving dynamics is almost unbeatable. I mean, I think that's the point with station wagons or tourings as this one. I mean, you have the extra amount of storage here at the back, the foldable seats, the rails, the tow hitch. It gets really practical. But at the same time, you have all these performance, all the 601 horsepower, over 800 newton meters of torque, everything packaged into one car. And the performance actually don't remove the comfort. It's so two-faced. It's so comfortable on highways. It's so silent. It's so sophisticated to drive. But at the same time, when you enter the sport mode, you floor it, you get a really tight car. It's almost like a train going on a railroad. It's so stable. It's so predictable when you drive it with the DCS system on, active. But it's so fast and it's so not bending in the corners. It's really stable and it's really fun to drive, despite being so heavy and so long. I'm actually very curious. I want to know your thoughts and your view on the M60 Touring. Is this what the market needs? Is this a compelling package for you? Let me know in the comments and let us have a nice and good discussion about this car. Looking forward to it. And as I always say, like, subscribe and engage. So important for me to be able to continue doing this. Stay electric. Thank you for watching. Speak to you soon.